guys, this is Lost Spaces, and this is my juicy mixtape.
Why I be stuck here in this boneless space? Why I be camped here in this empty place? Seems like a question for our endless days. We seem to be caught here lost in an endless maze. So when will we rise to act on what we say? Or will the words be sounds in an empty place? Seems like a question for our endless days. We seem to be caught here lost in an endless maze. Just like neon lights and fake guitars, nothing ever seems to make any sense at all. You said silver and gold ain't happening, but I bring you home. You bring me back to life. You make me feel alive. I feel alive. We're heart to heart, true light in the darkest days. Do we believe that there is a better way? Seems like we're miles away from happy days. We seem to be caught here looped in fuzzy days. And just like neon lights and fake guitars, nothing never seems to make any sense at all. You said silver and gold ain't happening, but I bring you home. Bring me back to life. You make me feel alive. I feel alive. How do hearts light in the darkest days? Do we believe that there is a better way? Seems like we're miles away from happy days. We seem to be caught here looped in fuzzy days. Just like neon lights and fake guitars, nothing never seems to make any sense at all. You said, well, silver and gold ain't happening, but I bring you home. You bring me back to life. You make me feel alive. I feel alive. You're all I need. When this world fades, only you remain. You're all I need. When everything's not the same, so you never change. You said silver and gold ain't happening, but I bring you home. You bring me back to life. You make me feel alive. I feel alive. What you said, well, silver and gold ain't happening, but I bring you home. You bring me back to life. You make me feel alive. I find. Thank you.
Okay. So my first question, which I usually ask guests who have interesting names.
Oh.
So, where did Lost Spaces come from?
Well, Lost Spaces came from a trip that I made to Singapore to my first ever music festival, I think in 2016 at Laneway. So at that time, Lost Spaces was sort of touted as like a trio with me, my brother, and my cousin.
Oh.
And we started it as like this little family band, and then we added a friend that played the guitar. And at that time, it was very like, oh, okay, let's just do it. But then we didn't really have a name, so I think we were going by Sam Lopez Trio. But like we made, like, I mean, if we want to compare to John Mayer Trio, like we made music that was nothing near there, you know. But I did have like, I was still doing a solo singer-songwriter thing at that time as well. So and then I started writing more in a band setting because I started very Ed Sheeran-y, very one guitar, like solo singer-songwriter, kind of acoustic pop. And then I think when I came to KL in 2015, that was when I first like started exploring like the options to do music here. And I went to open mics and stuff, and it was like everyone was doing the same thing. They were either doing Ed Sheeran covers, or at that time I think John Mayer covers were still very prevalent, very, very, very strong root in the open mic scene at that time. And the songs that were written were also sort of kind of replicated after that. And nothing wrong with that, but I kind of felt like, oh, but this is not really what I want to do, even though I was a big fan at that time. So it was a series of events of me playing shows, solo shows, and then I decided to take like a YOLO trip to Singapore for the festival because at that time I was listening a lot to Two Door Cinema Club in 1975. And I saw the 1975 announced in Singapore, and I was like, whoa, is this the closest I'll get to watch them? And I actually I decided to buy just for the 1975, and I went. But I think because I didn't go with any friends, I didn't have any pre-planned friends to like, hey, let's go festival together, you know, go pre-drink, go do this. I didn't have any of those plans. I just reached there in the morning. I think the doors opened at 2 p.m. And I think at that time, the person that I bought the ticket off, like the gang, was like Froya, which I love her. Like she's one of like, to me, the legendary like Malaysian indie synth pop like goddess. Like she started the whole wave of that. Then I think Jin Hackman was also in the group, if I'm not mistaken. But like I didn't know them at that time. But I just went to collect my tickets, and then they were like, okay, see you. And then I just went on my own thing. And I like felt like I was in a different world, you know, like I felt like, because I come from a very traditional, conservative Christian background. And that was like my first few ever concerts in my life were like evangelical bands like Planet Shakers and Hillsong. And even though I'm not religious now anymore, but like those were the only like access to like live music and culture that I had. So going to a festival with like obscure names like Battles, which I was like one of the fucking greatest bands I've ever seen live, a trio that like did like sequence electronic music with like offbeat, off-tempo stuff that just made sense, and it was so magical to just observe.
And was that your first time hearing them?
I heard of them via a friend. My friend was like, yo, you got to check this person out. So I went and did a bit of homework, but seeing it live was like just another...
when like one of your first experiences with an artist is live, it really changes everything.
Correct. Yeah. And the other person I saw, which I didn't know before then, was Thundercat.
Oh, yes!
So I was just like so blown away because there was like three guys, like him, his keyboardist, and his drummer.
So good.
And it was like one of the most like mind-blowing sets I've ever seen.
Pop your shoulder a little bit, you know?
And I think at that time I never seen a bassist like sing as well, you know? So it was like very like mind-blowing like set of like sets that I saw. I also saw The Internet, which I love. Steve Lacy was playing keys. The Internet is Steve Lacy's original band, and I think at that time he was probably like 15 or 16
was
when he was
so
touring.
young?
Yeah, he was that young. He was the youngest member of the band, and I think like for me, The Internet was like this mind-blowing set as well, because I was walking around the festival and I was like listening to. I was just hearing the music in the background, and they had this like very alternative, grungy R&B. I just heard the voice, and the voice in my head was like, whoa, this is like some Alina Perez, like very sultry, kind of soulful voice. And because of my upbringing of like very conservative, like my mind was very like, oh, I just pictured someone, you know, like this kind of like floaty, angelic, like long-haired, like like girl, right?
Yeah.
And then I pop in and I look up and I see like the coolest girl I've ever seen in my life, you know.
Yeah.
And like I wanted to be her in that moment because like
She's so
she
cool.
had like a kind of a mini mohawk.
Yeah, that was like her iconic mohawk, and
yes,
she has
correct.
such a, you're right, like this kind of sultry voice that you
Yeah.
wouldn't expect to come from
Correct.
her.
And Sid was amazing. And I think at that point of time when I saw that, I was just like, what? It was of course a big like cultural shock for me, but like also like I guess I immersed myself in that entire space. And then when it came, of course, to 1975, I think they were playing Somebody Else. And at that time, Somebody Else wasn't out yet. It was still like 2 months before the song dropped. And I was hearing it for the first time without any context. Just, I know the other songs, but that was like a new song to me. And I think the thing that really moved me was the fact that Somebody Else was a song about like feeling jealous of someone that you used to love that has moved on. And prior to that point, I've never had that like feeling ever, you know. I've never experienced it in my life, so I mean, why would I relate, right? But for some reason, like I think when Maddie started singing the song, I just felt everything he felt, you know, in that moment. So I just and also like I really felt like I just was lost and immersed in that moment. So after I came out of it the next day, I was just like, I guess I lost bases. So I think that was how it sort of came together, like the mixture of the solo trip being like a big like cultural shift to how I saw live music and how I saw music could be made. Because prior to that point, I was very just exposed to very not bad, but like straightforward kind of pop stuff, which
like on the radio.
Correct, on radio and everything else. And I personally started to like develop taste. I think prior to that point of time, I did not have much taste at all.
And I mean, with that lineup at Laneway, like you had these incredible artists to kind of like
and there's
pull
also like Purity ringing as well, like amazing, like and I saw Flume in 2016, so that was like the icing on the cake, you know, like. And I think those like melding, it's like this melting pot of like different genres into like one like little subculture of live performances made me go like, yo, I want to be on this kind of stage all the time. So and then when I came home, I just told my brother, I was like, okay, we're called Lost Spaces now, by the way. Then they're like, oh, okay.
They're like,
sure,
I love that.
whatever you. Because I think I've always been the one like spearheading everything. So it's my brother always says like, oh, Lost Spaces is like even when we were a band, because I still was very dictatorial with like how I wanted things to go.
Are you the
songwriting.
eldest sibling?
Yes, I'm the eldest sibling.
As an eldest child myself, we are allowed.
So, but like my brother said this, he was like, oh yeah, Lost Spaces is like, you're the dad and it's your child, and we're all just uncles. Like taking care of it part-time, you know, like that kind of thing. But it's still your child.
It's still your baby.
Eventually, so like I was like, all right, let's roll with that. So ever since that, even the members, my brother ended up doing his own thing. Another drummer named Kyle came in. He's from the band Resort. Shout out.
Oh, nice.
He started playing with me, and my keyboardist. At that time, we were a 4-piece band at first, without like a synth player. But I decided to move into a more synth-based sound, more electronic sound. So then Kun came along, Kusanagi. And then Shen came in as a guitarist. And then my cousin has been the mainstay. He's been there since day one. So he's still playing with us. As he plays the bass. So I think that was how, like, I guess the formation of the name. And then I think it also embodied a lot of who I was, which I felt like, if I were to go a bit more personal, I came from a very like Christian background with very conservative values. And then the more I was exposed to the world and I met my first few queer friends, I started to rethink all the things that I grew up with. Like I was literally like almost like a poster child, a church poster child essentially. And then I had built my whole identity around that. And then I was, over the period of time, I slowly deconstructed all of that. And Lost Spaces was that, like, yeah, if I take everything away, like I have to find my own self outside of, I guess, the community and the sort of the hallmarks of like my
and defining
my faith.
yourself on your own terms.
Correct, yeah.
Versus like what we are brought up with, which so many of us kind of just
we
stick
absorb,
with that. Absorb, exactly.
So,
I mean,
so that's how Lost Spaces came. So,
nice. Which it nicely brings me to my next question, because I was doing a bit of research on you, of course.
Yes.
And so I read that when you got your start in music at the age of 10, playing at your grandfather's funeral, and your mom taught you your first few chords.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of a stalker, but that's my job. So do you feel like a through line that you can connect to like the evolution of your relationship with your music, or like how it's changed over the years to the early days with your family? And I mean, even with the band at the beginning, and even till now, like you said, like a sense of comfort in it. Like, how did that start? A lot of it being with family, kind of evolve.
Yeah, I think like with like the upbringing, of course, like being taught my first few chords. I think my uncle was the one that taught me the basic chords of like what a chord structure is for a song, and I think what I took away a lot from that point, that like music had a lot of power to move, right? To move people, whether in a great way or also in a deeper, like more meaningful way. And of course, growing up religious, my music was very intertwined with like, because like in evangelical Christianity, a big emphasis is like you connecting to God via the songs that was like written at that time. So I grew up writing a lot of those stuff, a lot of gospel songs to God, it's like, but I think like as I grew, I realized that actually I was doing it for my own satisfaction, but I was kind of like kidding myself into saying, oh, this is all for a higher power, or for, even though I knew that what actually, when I create or when I make something, it was the only reason how I felt like alive. So I think that still stays like the same for me now. Like that's why like I'm not very big on the glitz and the glam of like, I guess, the artistry, just because like I just want to create and try to make a sustainable living from what I make, right? Hopefully people like it enough that that value adds to me so I can live a decent life. And I think that still rings true now. I think from that point on, from being introduced to it to developing my own sense of like what it meant to me. And I think bottom line is like, I just love to create, regardless of whether it is a piece of music or it's just writing a poem or I also enjoy writing press releases for some reason.
Oh, really?
I mean, I worked in a label for a period as well, so I was doing like marketing and the A&R stuff. So like, it sort of becomes the pocket of like, I just like to make stuff. Yeah, so because that makes me the most, I wouldn't say happy, but it gives me a sense of like, oh yeah, I can do something in this world. And it, I guess, validates existence. So
and I mean, I think it's actually so cool how it like started very faith-based for you. And I mean, it's not that there's no faith in it now. There still is, and it just has that beautiful evolution that happens as people, but based in something so pure.
I basically became more honest. I would kind of boil it down where when I was making it like with the guise of it being for the higher power. Versus now it's like, no, I actually wanted to make it for myself. And I think people would call it selfish or whatsoever, but like, but for me, that's literally the reason why I feel like I can wake up every day, So,
and at the end of the day, we need to do things for us, for yourself.
So, and I feel like it kind of centers a lot of like, definitely like very individualistic kind of way of living, but at the same time it does bring some sense of like community, because when you put it out, there are people that connect with it, and something that's so personal that you wouldn't say to someone else's face directly. I can just dress it up as a song and like put it out, and somewhat it reaches people, and I think that satisfaction is even more like
and I guess like leaving it slightly up to interpretation allows for there to be so many interpretations. So your latest single, Face the Dark, has a fun beat, and I can definitely like dance to it. But I can also feel, at least this is my interpretation, like a little bit of this melancholy vibe in it as well. But so how do you strike that balance, like that happy sad kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I think most of my songs, like I think if you like listen to the lyrics or like pay attention to the lyrics, are mostly not sad, but like a bit more somber, because like and I like the idea of duality, where I think when you meet me in person, I'm very like warm and bright, but like the day to day, like I do live with like a bit of a sense of existentialism, a bit stoic to a certain extent to sort of nullify that, but at the same time also there's like just this sense of like, oh shit, everything I do kind of like yeah, it's bright and happy, but like there are many layers to it. So I like duality. So I mean, I'm also like Chindian, I guess. So and I seem to like appreciate things in like polar opposites. Like for example, like I'm a big anime fan. On the flip side, I love big epic motion pictures. You know, that's like kind of like two separate like
it's just the contradictions within us. You know, they are what make us human.
Correct. And I find that when I sometimes put the two together, or actually that has been a recipe for the music, where I like take, you're right, like two moods all together to sort of make something that's like in the middle. I find like, oh, that's me, you know. And I like kind of having that polarity where you can kind of cry when you listen to the songs, or if you hear the lyrics, but at the same time you want to like bop your head.
So your shoulders are bopping and the tears are falling.
Correct. So, and I think that is also a combination of life in general. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. So I think the way I put my art together is like, I'll just bring it together. And then whichever you are feeling in that period of time, you're probably gonna, if like you are on the sadder side and you hear the lyrics, I'm like, oh, I felt that. But then let's go. But then if like you're on the happier side, you're just gonna vibe to the music without paying attention to the lyrics, you know. So I think like that has been a bit more of like, I guess my strengths, I would say, when I write as well. So I balance that.
Nice. So back in 2019, you performed at Good Vibes,
Oh yes, I did,
So, and I'm sure that was like unreal. That Good Vibes was huge. Like, would have been such an exciting opportunity. But going from that to the pandemic, and then now back out. How has performing changed for you?
I think there's just a more, a greater sense of appreciation to just be able to be on the stage again, I think. At that time, I think even when I played Good Vibes, I think there was this moment, I think after the set, it was a lot of fun. But when I came down, I was like, and not to sound super ungrateful, and I know everyone would love to have that opportunity too, but I kind of sat there, I'm like, oh, is that it? Like there was just this feeling of like, oh, I thought I would like be on the biggest stage in my life. There were people there and they were so supportive, the crowd was great. But like, there was just a sense of like, almost like I didn't appreciate that I had that opportunity. But now in hindsight, of course, now when we had like 2 years to not be able to do that, and I remember, I think the first show I played again, it was like at Rex, I think, and I came up and it was a very just like a, damn, it's so fucking good to be back, you know. It was just like that feeling of like, wow, I almost forgot how it felt like to be up there and like just doing your thing and playing with the boys as well. Like that's things that I look forward to, because they bring a lot of the music I write to life. And I think there's just a more bigger sense of like appreciation to just being able to do it. And now I'm definitely not going to ever take that for granted if I ever get an opportunity to get on stage. And yeah, so
I think sometimes on an upward trajectory, you always feel like you're not sure when you're going to hit that top.
Correct,
And so it's hard to enjoy the journey until you're suddenly like, you have to pause.
Yes, correct. So I think like, I also did not like realize how much we did in 2019 until the lockdown. I was like, oh wow, we fucking did that in that like 1 year space.
Yeah.
There's just so much stuff. We opened for Hugo, we also opened for Pum, and then Good Vibes, and then we did Urbanscapes also at the end of the year with Boy Pablo, and so that was like just like a massive year with the debut album coming out as well. And then suddenly everything was just like yeah. So but I mean, yeah, definitely a new sense of appreciation, a new sense of like, damn, okay, like I kind of want to do this, and I'm just glad we can.
Yeah. And I'm sure even the audience, like as a audience member now, that I'm always so grateful to be there, to be able to see an artist perform live, because you forget like live music was one of the last things to come back and the first things to go. And so even the first concert I saw when I first came back, I was like, it was Thundercat actually.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh my god, I can't believe it. There's humans around me and we're singing, and on both ends. I think the energy between both people have changed.
For sure.
Yeah. So my last question is a bit of a silly one. So growing up, did you ever make a mixtape for a crush?
I still do that. What do you mean?
So if you were
use Spotify.
So if you were to make one now, what's the number one song you'd put on it?
No, I mean, depends on like how special the person is, I guess.
It's like a mid-range crush.
Mid-range crush. Mid-range crush.
If you put it now and then you send a playlist to your crush and she watches it, she'll be like, am I just a mid-range crush?
Okay, so for me, I got tiers. Like, so if it's a mid-range crush, I'll just do like a very basic playlist, I would say. Maybe a tasteful one with like artists like Litany is a very cute band. So that's because they make like I think they have this song called Bedroom. It's a very like innocent but slightly like naughty kind of like if you wanna come to my place, girl.
Cute and cheeky,
very cute and cheeky. But if I were to go a bit like deeper, then my first track on the deeper album would be like Arabella by Arctic Monkeys. I don't know why, because I think Arabella is just like the best ever. I want to write that song. I wish I wrote that song. But of course, if it's like I'm super invested, I'll just write a song. I'll write an entire album.
That's when you know. That's when you know.
Yeah, I'll write an entire album for her. You know. Yeah. So. Yeah.
All right. So then we'll know when you write that album. We can tell that you're in love.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it with all my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You brought me light when the sun was gone, kept me going when the light was long. You are a dream with a heart of gold. We drifted with violets. Oh, this tragedy, our love the casualty. How do I ever let you go? Now I'm dancing on my own, chasing sunsets all alone. You're just a picture on my phone. When it's you I wanna hold. You wrote me letters when we're far from home. We snuggled in when it got too cold. Now just a memory to keep me hold. A distance gap between us. Oh, this tragedy, I left a casualty. How do I ever let you go? Now I'm dancing on my own, chasing sunsets all alone. You're just a picture on my phone. When it's you I wanna hold. If I could turn back time just to change the tides, maybe to find our way on the road. I just miss your eyes, your perfect lips on mine. I wish you never lose your glow. Now I'm dancing on my own, chasing sunsets all alone. You're just a picture on my phone. When it's you I wanna hold. Now I'm dancing on my own, chasing sunsets all alone. You're just a picture on my phone. When it's you I wanna hold. Thank you. Yeah.